What is up, guys? Andy, Forestine Runner here, back with a double race recap today. Yes, not one, but two races I want to be talking to you about today. Of course, we have recently just raced twice in a week. We had the Rose Inn 4-mile road race on Tuesday, and then, of course, the Summer Speedway 10k on Sunday. I wanted to do a double race recap before I even raced either of these because I thought it would be great to combine the two of them, and lo and behold, we have contrasting emotions on both of those races. So it's going to make for an interesting chat. Just before we dive in to the conversation, of course, the podcast is now live. It's on SoundCloud at the moment. I'm trying to figure out how to get it onto iTunes and Google Play, so bear with me. But if you're interested, link is in the description below. I will be releasing the video later this week, probably, that myself and James did, because we did a video version of it. But of course, I want to release the audio first to see how many of you guys are interested in an audio-only podcast. So that's there. And of course, if you're excited for today, please do hit that like button. And if you are enjoying the content we're putting out on the channel at the moment, please do consider supporting the channel via the donation link in the description. On with the video. Okay, so let's of course start with the Rose Inn 4-mile road race that happened on Tuesday last week. Very exciting race, and in my opinion, for myself, went very well. I have very, very good positive thoughts about this, and I am seriously considering doing the July version because this is a summer series that the Chepstow Harriers put on May, June, July and August, and I think the August one is a relays event. So I'm certainly going to be looking at doing the July one because it was just great fun, and to be honest with you guys, it's the closest I've ever come to running a flat-out road 5k, and we'll talk about that in a second. So in terms of how I approach the evening, I approach the evening with no expectations. I've never officially raced anything less than a 10k, if I'm honest with you. Never done a park run. I don't do park runs just because those are the times when I do my long runs. So it's a distance that I was really unfamiliar with and unsure about how to approach. I went in with, as I said, no expectations. In the back of my mind, kind of hoping that I'd be able to run 540s, mid to late 540s, thinking that's my 10k pace. I haven't touched 10k pace in a while. We're only just approaching the third week of, just getting into the third week of 10k training, back from all that marathon training, so hopefully just getting some of the speed back. And I was thinking to myself, that will be a really nice target if I can, but I'm not going to stress if I don't. I'm just going to see what my body allows me to do. So this route was a 2-lap route. It was just an out and back, and it is as flat as you'll get. Zero elevation across the whole thing. It's like +1 going out and -1 coming back. It is ridiculously flat. So we went out there. It had rained all day, but the rain had held off for that evening. It was a tiny little bit windy, approaching one of the turnaround points for about a quarter of a mile, maybe half a mile, but that was it. Nothing to do any detrimental damage to any of the times. So I started off and I just thought, right, okay, let's just go for it tonight and let's see what we can do, and let's get in the mind zone of it's going to hurt, and it's going to start hurting pretty quickly. As I said, I remember my 5k time trial back in December. That hurt, so I was prepared. We went out and I felt it was a very congested start, but that soon very quickly filtered out and was much better within literally meters. But the start was a little bit crowded. Lots of people, obviously it attracts a lot of fast runners, so lots of people bolting out the blocks. I was getting my heels clipped and what have you, but either way, we got going, we settled into a rhythm, and we clocked off the first mile at 5:43, and I thought to myself, okay, that is pretty much about where I wanted to be, maybe a little bit quick, but either way, I'm happy with that. Let's just see what we can do now. And I was feeling comfortable and in control. I just had the form chat with you guys a week before, or a few days before, so I was really thinking about drawing the arms back, pulling them back, being upright. So that was all in control at that point. Reached the turnaround point, coming back down the other way, clocked a 5:36 or 5:37, and I just kind of looked at my watch in disbelief. I thought, no, there's no way I can get into this time. This is what I was touching on my 5k time trial last year, when of course I did a 5:36 average pace for that, and I'd done a load of speed work leading up to that. I haven't touched speed work, so I was like, wow, okay, right, now I've set the bar this high for myself. I can't let this slip. So I went for it. I'm not going to lie, guys. I went for it at that point. So we came round the bend to go into the second loop, and bam, I just thought, hammer down, let's see what we can do. So we went out on for the third mile, and that's the next out stretch, and that's where the wind caught me a little bit towards the end of that. It does get quite open, but again at the turnaround point, come back down. So my watch flashed up saying something like 5:39 or something, and I was just in disbelief that I had run a second sub 5:40 mile. I don't know, I can't explain it. I was in pain, I was hurting, form was starting to deteriorate, I was starting to hang on for dear life, but I was just gobsmacked. So anyway, did the turnaround point, had a mile to go, really starting to feel fatigued at that point, thinking this is terrible. Thankfully, a Cheltenham Harriers chap ran up past me and said to me, come on mate, let's try and take a few of these. So he just dragged me along, and I was just like, okay. So I was in no fit state. He was absolutely flying, bless him. And it was so kind of him to say that to me, because I think he could see I was fatiguing a bit. But either way, I got round a couple of people with him, 2 or 3 people, and then I had to let him go. But he really gave me that motivational push, and that's what I love about racing. It's just you can find a bit of a gem of a racer in someone like that, who is prepared to come along, almost take you under their wing and say, right, come on mate, I can see you struggling, let's take some of them. So, as I said, past 2 or 3 people, really blowing out of my backside at that point, and then I just was like, mate, you go, I'm just going to hang on for dear life now. So he went off a little bit, I had half a mile to go, and all that was going through my mind was, half a mile, that's it, half a mile, it's 800 metres, it's 2 laps around a track, you can do this. And I just sort of persevered through to the end, came across the finish line in 22:59, average pace of, what was it, 5:39 or something, and just over the moon. Couldn't believe it, could not believe the pace that I had set, and thought, wow, you've just set the bar high. So in terms of that race, I came away from that feeling like I had achieved something I didn't think I could achieve, and therefore, of course, set my standards up very high. So that, of course, then led me into this Sunday's race, which I was highly anticipating and very excited for. Made sure that I just ran easy in the week leading up to this, just let my body recover, because although it's 4 miles, it's not too much of a big distance, it still does take it out of you, especially when you're running at a pace that you don't feel is possible. So I approached this weekend with confidence, knowing that I can get back into the 36s, and believing that I could get close to somewhere where I was before. There was a small glimmer of hope in the back of my mind that I might be able to get a PB. Obviously it didn't happen, but I got very close, and for that I'm very grateful and delighted. But I do have some more contrasting thoughts on this race for myself. So let's dive into this. So obviously this was on Father's Day, this Sunday just gone, and started at 11 a.m. So it was a nice chilled out morning. Really appreciate that, not getting up at stupid o'clock to have early breakfast. Rocked up. Weather was really hit and miss, on and off. And the thing with the Summer Speedway and the Speedway course, it's a 2-loop course, just like the Rose Inn. It's 2 5k loops or 2 4.5k loops and a bit of an out and back. And it's by the estuary, by the river. So there's a couple of open stretches where the wind can come in and cut in onto the course. And there's just like literally a quarter mile stretch where you can start to feel like you're being blown backwards. And thankfully, touch wood, there was very, very minimal wind on the day, which was awesome. But at the second turnaround point, it was about 5.5 miles. I think when you're really fatigued and trying, any wind, even no matter how subtle it is, feels like you're running into a hurricane. And there was a tiny little bit, which honestly did absolutely naff all to my time. It did nothing, but for me it felt like I was starting to run through treacle and run through mud, and it was a little bit difficult at that point. But if we whiz back to the start, myself and Lee have rocked up. I felt absolutely trash going into this race. I was tired. Although I was in a positive mental mindset, I was really tired. I was saying to Lee, I'm just not in the mood this morning. I'm really not. I've woken up really tired. I've been struggling to sleep over the last few days in particular, and that's still carrying on now. Work is so busy at the moment. That it's just consuming my life and my thoughts and everything, which is a great thing, because when you're self-employed you have to make hay while the sun shines. But of course it meant on Sunday my mind was preoccupied and elsewhere. So I just said to him, literally seconds before the gun went off, I just said, my mind is elsewhere. I'm not ready for the pain. Whereas Tuesday night I was ready to immerse myself in that pain and embrace it and run through it. Sunday I was not. We started out, I started, as I normally do, quite near the back, because obviously there are some really fast runners there. Again, sub 30 runners. And we went around the first corner and we got out onto the main road and we just started chugging along. And me and Corey and Lee sat in the pack at that point, feeling quite comfortable. First mile clicked off 5:50 flat. I remembered from the January Speedway, I ran a 5:48 at that point, so I knew I was a couple of seconds slower, and I was working hard. I was working really hard at that point just to run a 5:50. I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to be able to stick this pace. I'm feeling fatigued. But what happens in the Speedway is you go around the corner and you just have this I think it's like a quarter of a mile, just the tiniest of gentle declines, like the road just takes you. It's probably not more than 10 or 20 foot, if I'm honest. To the human eye, you can't barely see it, but you can feel it when you're going. So I thought, well, let's see what the second mile brings, because the second mile is always my quickest mile in this event. And lo and behold, 5:43. So I thought, okay, that's more like it. That's pretty much spot on what I ran in January. So I thought, okay, let's see what we can do at this point. It's one more mile until 5k. And I remember in January, when I set my PB, I went off too fast. And by the 5k mark at the turnaround, I was really mentally struggling. How I held on that day, I'll have no idea. So I thought I will get myself to 5k and see how I feel. So I came back up, did the loop around. By this point, I put a little bit of, or just a few meters distance between myself and Corey and Lee, and Pete, who I was running with. So I just kind of like pushed the pace a bit and thought, okay, I know I'm working hard, but mentally now I'm in a good rhythm. I'm hurting already, but my mind is suddenly on the ball, on the game. And I think that's half the battle with 10Ks. If your mind's in it, you're going to be fine. If your body's, because your mind will always go way before your body. Your body will be able to carry on way long after your mind says quit. So I thought to myself, let's just get to 5k. Got to 5k, did a 5:51 or 5:50, and I thought, okay, we are holding this pace. We are sticking to this pace. Let's roll with it. I did the turnaround, started the second lap and thought, right, one lap to go, started to pick off a few people that had maybe gone out a bit too quick. Let's go for it. So I stuck at it, put the hammer down a little bit more, or what I thought was putting the hammer down a little bit for. Mile 4 came on that very gentle sort of downhill bit, and another 5:51. So I thought to myself, I'm a bit disappointed there, because I knew that if I was going to make up time anywhere, it would be that fourth mile. The first and second and sort of like 4th to 5th mile is where you make a bit of time with that little bit of downhill road in it, and I didn't. But still held pace, so I was like, okay, I'm working harder. I was running with someone from, I think, 7 Athletic Club, yellow and blue vest you might have seen in the video. And I was just trying to stick to him. He was going well. As I was trying to go round him, he was picking up the pace, not blocking my moves, but just like kind of saying, you're not getting past me today. And I kind of tried a few times. And then I thought, do you know what, I'm going to respect it. I'm not going to bother keep trying. I'm wasting my energy, keep surging to try and get around him. Let's just sit behind him and see what we can do. Came back up with a very, very gentle wind, just like someone blowing in your face. 5:57. At this point last year, I'd hit a 6:05 or something because I'd really blown up. And I thought to myself, I'm really proud of this. This is really good. You're holding pace. Yes, that mile's tough. It's always going to be tough. And you've just nailed a sub-6 on it, which you didn't manage to do in January. You can do this. You've got 1 mile and a bit left. So at that point, my mind was totally in the game. I was in pain. I was hurting, but my mind was there. And I knew that whatever the time was in the end, I was going to be proud of it. So I hit that 5th mile point and just put the hammer down, went for it, took another 2 or 3 people, came around the corner, looped around the estate where that last bit is, hit 6 miles. As you saw in the video, 6 miles, I was really just kind of like in the zone, going for it, checked my watch and was like, okay, let's do this. 0.2 of a mile to go, really starting to put the hammer down, took another couple of people on that straight, round the corner, and bam, finished in 36:24, I think it was. So of course I crossed the line 7 seconds off a PB, 7 seconds off the time I ran back in January, but of course the proud element in me is the fact that I'd ran what I wanted to run in terms of getting back into sub 36. I ran a much smarter race, much more controlled, much stronger, and I finished well. And I think for me, I've always said this year, my goal is to run in a controlled state, stop being so irrational with my racing and just try and learn the pacing side of things. I've done that really well this year, bar one instance in the marathon, my races have been really good this year, and that for me was another great example of being able to run a smart and sensible race and getting close back to the time I wanted to get. Of course though, my contrasting emotions is obviously not approaching the race in the best mindset, being really tired, not having that right mental focus in the beginning. It kind of felt a little bit too late at mile 2 or 3 to kick in and feel good. I wanted to feel that from the start. If I'd had the rows in mentality I did on Sunday, who knows. And also I think being 7 seconds off a PB, no matter how much you go, oh, do you know what, you've not been working on speed, and I know I can talk to myself and say I've not been working on speed, it doesn't matter. I think when you get that close, you start to think to yourself, gosh, where could I have lost a second or two a mile across that course? Could I have done it? And then you start thinking and going over it in your mind. So I think the ultimate thing I have running through my mind now is I have Gloucester 10k in sort of 3 weeks time, and then I will hopefully, as I said, do the Rose in July event. But the Gloucester 10k is not really a PB-able course. I've never got close to a PB on that course. It's very twisty turning. It goes from roads, a bit more uphill and downhill in it, gravel canal paths, lots of twists and turns. It's not somewhere you can get the best momentum flow. Once you hit sort of mile 3, the second half is a little bit weaving in and out of things, and it's difficult. I've never found it to be a successful course, although I absolutely love the course, and hence why I'm drawn back to it every year. So the reality for me now is I don't think I'm going to get maybe close to the time that I'd like to try and get that sub 36, which has always been in the back of my mind. I know I've talked a lot recently about not putting time pressures on myself, and I really went out there yesterday with no time pressure just to run a strong race, and I'm really pleased. But of course I can taste how close I am to that sub 36, and I really want to work hard to that. But I think I just have to probably now accept that that's not going to happen this summer unless I can find another really fast, flat 10k in July. I don't want 10ks to span into August, because that's going to really be end of July into August my focus for the Severn Bridge half marathon, and then of course potentially this marathon in October. So for me is now the quandary, what do I do? How do I keep? Obviously I'm going to continue my 10k training because I've got a 10k race coming up, and I've obviously hopefully got another Rose in race coming up, which is going to be fantastic, and I'm really keen to get down and dirty with the speed work. I love it, it hurts, it burns, but I want to get faster, and I'm going to really dedicate these next few weeks to that speed work, and I can't wait. I just love to have maybe another shot at another PB, because the Speedway is realistically on the calendar the best 10k around for me to go and get a PB at. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, thank you so much for your patience and watching through this. I hope my ramblings made some sense. I am overall very pleased with both of the races. As I said, a few contrasting emotions there, but on the whole, really happy. So as I said at the beginning, if you enjoyed this video and you have managed to stay here to the end, please do give it a like. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, that would also be much appreciated. And if you think there's anyone out there that would love to watch my videos, I don't know why, but if you would, please do consider sharing it with your friends. And I will of course see you next time for more videos. Until then.